You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
We gotta do something.
Absolutely.
You know what we gotta do? Toga party.
Toga! Toga!
Toga!
Toga! Toga! Toga! Toga! Toga!
I want you to kill every golfer on the course.
Check me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but if I kill all the golfers, they're gonna lock me up and throw away the key.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hour 3 of the Wednesday night Chat Lives Matter extravaganza. I am 1/3 of the crew for tonight, Mr. Rick Robinson. The other half of the normal crew is actually off. He's still out of town, so we have Ordy Packard joining us this evening. Good morning, Mr. Packard, sir. Or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I don't know. You're in California. What the hell time is it where you are right now?
Hey, it's early evening. It's 7 o'clock out here.
Yeah. For some reason, I was thinking you were in Hawaii all of a sudden. I'm trying to think of morning and stuff. All right,
I feel like I'm in Hawaii sometimes.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I don't know what that means. It seemed like something to say.
I don't know. I'm disoriented. I'm into hour 3 of what's going to be hour 4. We also have a guest joining us this evening. For those of you who may not have heard him before, he usually hangs out with me on Off the Rails. He's decided to come on with us an hour earlier than usual and hang out with me and Orty. We have Chad Alexander, otherwise known as the Chairman, on KOKC Radio 95.3 FM and 1520 AM right here in the Oklahoma City metro area. Good evening, Mr. Alexander, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Rick. Always a pleasure to join you.
You're welcome anytime. It's always a blast to have you on. So, just in case we do have folks that are listening for the first time, since you're coming on a little bit earlier than usual, why don't you give out a bit of basically what it is that you do, how you got into radio, and just kind of start from the beginning, sort of, kind of.
I just started in politics in high school Republicans and college Republicans, and worked for the former Congressman J.C. Watts from the great state of Oklahoma, the first African-American Republican south of Mason-Dixon line to be elected to the U.S. Congress since Reconstruction, and ended up in his political shop and worked for him from 94 to 2000. 2001, I ran and won the state chairmanship of the Republican Party in Oklahoma and served till 2003. Then started my own political consulting company and ran over 100 races in multiple states, and then started my own government relations company. And then about 4 years ago almost, I noticed there was a big hole in local coverage on the state of Oklahoma, what was going on here, what was going on politically, what was going on at the Capitol, how few people actually understood the way the process works, because every state's legislative process is different. And went in and met with the owners of Power Media and told them I wanted a radio show. And a month later, I was on the air, and I'll hit year 4, November 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got to be coming up on year 4, because you were the one I was yelling at most of the time on the radios during the drive home during the 2015-2016 election cycle, because you kept telling everybody Trump was going to win, and I kept telling you were wrong. But you couldn't hear me because I was only yelling at the radio.
And well, we don't need to recap that, because half of America hasn't accepted the fact that Trump won, so you don't have to declare you're wrong, because they haven't taken it well.
Yeah, well, I'm not one of those folks. I actually jumped on board as soon as I knew he'd won, and figured he wasn't my first choice or even my 27th choice for that matter. But I have to say, overall, I'm pleasantly surprised with most of what he's done. Now, some of the things,
Rick, actually, he wasn't my first choice in the primary, and not even my second. But at some point, you have to be able, especially when you do radio, you do things like this. If you're going to be an analyst, you have to call it like it is, not who you may be pulling the lever for. But I can tell you, by the time we got into the heat of the primary season, and I call that, fall of 2015, it was pretty obvious Donald Trump was going to be the Republican nominee for president. When you have a rally at 11 o'clock at night, and there's 37,000 people there, and 104,000 people are watching on Facebook Live. I mean, it's like is this a rock concert? I mean, this is a guy giving a speech. And when you got 35,000 live and 107,000 watching, you have a massive following. And we'd never seen anything like it, and everyone underestimated him, and he won the presidency.
Yeah, I can freely admit I did underestimate him. So now, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is there's been lots of political news going around right now. I've even heard this from some Republicans that apparently that Biden is polling well enough that everybody thinks he's basically going to run away with the election. So since you do this for a living, I wanted to have you on to kind of give us your take on what you're seeing so far. Is there smoke there yet? Is this just much ado about nothing?
When Trump came down the elevators in 2015 at Trump Tower in May, and we're sitting in June, and he was given about a 1% chance of winning the Republican nomination and no percentage chance of being president of the United States. And look who's the president of the United States. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think we were referring to today as the Quinnipiac poll. They polled 1,200 voters, 593 were Democrats. Do the math, and you'll find quickly that you're leaving out a lot of Republicans and independents when almost half of your poll is the Democrat Party. You can wipe whatever you want with it because that's what it's worth. If anybody's ever looked at polling, you have to balance between men and women. You have to balance between demographic groups. You have to balance between age groups. And you certainly have to balance between parties. And so, if 80% of almost half the poll says they're 90% of almost half the poll are Democrats, and so they're going to vote for the Democrat, you're probably going to get the result you want. But that's Quinnipiac, and that's how it is. But the fact is, it doesn't matter even if it was a good poll with solid metrics, and it was reliable, and you could look at it and look at the crosstabs and see, hey, this is accurate. It doesn't matter. You have 23 Democrats running for president. You're going to see phase one. Phase one will happen over the next 3 or 4 months, and that's people that are going to be dropping out. They're not going to have the financial resources. They don't have the backing, and they don't have the name ID to actually get there. And that'll be phase one. When this field actually narrows, you get to phase two. These people, and they're already, they're already leaking to their friends in the media and getting stories. Joe Biden, his entire public career, has supported the Hyde Amendment, which is pretty simple. And no matter who's controlled Congress or the Senate, the Hyde Amendment has been there, which is no federal taxpayer dollars will be used on abortion. He had to backtrack last week because he is being driven to the left because the Democrat primary voters in a presidential primary are far to the left of the average Democrat voter in a general election. You've got Kamala Harris out there, Elizabeth Warren out there, Bernie Sanders out there, Cory Booker out there. They're going to divide a lot of that, but what they're taking is a left-of-center candidate that he wants to be, and he's having to go back on the Hyde Amendment, which that's been in every appropriations bill since he was ever elected, and he's never voted against it, but now he's against it. I guess he's taking classes on how to appropriately touch and embrace women when he meets them. And literally he's been apologizing since he started running for president for his positions. Joe Biden's in the position he's in because he has 99% name ID. Bernie Sanders has 97% name ID. Then you fall down into candidates that are that second tier, like Buttigieg, who has a 57% name ID with Democrats. Harris, who I think is 68%. Booker, who I think is 62%. His lead's coming from for name ID. And I'll go back to the Republican primary for governor in Oklahoma. Rick, you'll remember this. Todd Lamb was leading in all the polls. And about a week out, I said, there's going to be a big surprise on primary night. And I didn't say what it was because I stayed neutral. I don't endorse candidates and races I analyzed. But what I saw from the polling was you have a statewide candidate for governor with 92% name ID 2 weeks out. And you have Mitt Cornett, who was sitting at 78%. Stitt was sitting at 75%, but they're a virtual tie. Well, all the room for growth was for the two guys at 75 and 78. As people had learned more about them, they had room for growth. If you're sitting at 92, you don't have a lot of room to grow when you're in a statistical tie. And I actually wrote down on a piece of paper from my producer, Todd Lamb will not make the runoff a week out, and handed it to him. And that was based on that. And we go back to 2016 when you were yelling at me about Trump. I was looking at the early votes in states that were coming in, and what you saw was a drastic fall-off of African-American voters, which only makes sense because you went from an African-American, young, good-looking, photogenic, optimistic candidate to a 70-year-old white female from Arkansas. And so there was a big drop-off there when you saw that in early voting in close states. You should have known they were going to have a problem. Apparently somebody missed those metrics. And so you have to look at it as a whole. One, phase one, people will drop out. Two, besides leaking to the press to just have negative stories on Biden, they're actually going to start running ads on social media and TV attacking each other. And it'll be the bloodbath that the Republican primary was in 2016. But what's unique about their rules, because of the superdelegate issue they had last time, anyone who gets 50% in a state gets a proportional amount of the delegates, but you have to have over half the delegates to be the nominee. Well, if you look at the latest poll out of Iowa, you have 4 people that are going to be over 15%. you keep going down that track because they're going to have the money. Kamala Harris is going to have the money. It looks like Buttigieg is going to have the money. Biden has the money. Sanders is going to have the money, and several others. How do you get over half the delegates when your dividing line's 15% and you've got 4 or 5 candidates getting over 15% in every state? And they start ripping each other up. Trump's virtually unopposed. A Republican filing against him in states would be great because that means he has a primary, which means he can take primary money and double dip on general election money, even though he's going to win because he's running a 90% favorable to Republicans, but allows him to double dip on donations. But you're also talking about a candidate and the president who raised $82 million in a quarter for the RNC, for the Joint Victory Fund, and for his own campaign. And of the $30 million that was raised for his campaign, the average donation was $34.58 to get to $30 million. So you do the math on how many people are donating to him. And so that shows a lot. But the Quinnipiac poll wasn't based the right way, and it is so early. I mean, if we use those metrics, Jeb Bush would be president right now.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that because I actually put a tweet out about that earlier. For everybody who's freaking out about these numbers, just remember if the initial polling was correct, we would have President Jebby Jeb right now. So very astute analysis as always. One of the things
and you have to remember if they go to the DNC convention without someone with having the votes, and they have to go to a second ballot. I mean, they will have virtually every candidate will expended all the money they could trying to be the nominee. And then you're going from July to November, and you're probably going to be facing an incumbent president that is going to have already raised and spent $1 billion and has a hell of a war chest ready to go while you try to raise money and reload.
Yeah, I have to admit, the bloodbath being on their side this election cycle makes me a little more happy. I didn't really like the 20 million Republicans running because it was like, I don't know, it was too much to keep up with. Them fighting amongst themselves is kind of nice.
Well, and how they're doing the debates. And I don't know if you've looked into this, and I mean, they have a cutoff of 20. Their debates are 2 nights. There's one on the first night, one on the second night. What Republicans did in 2016 is it was based on polling on who was on the main stage, and then who got cut off were on another stage because there were so many candidates. What the Democrats are going to do is Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders may not even be on the same stage. It's going to be drawn. I mean, people want to see Biden and Harris and Warren and Klobuchar and Buttigieg and the players on the stage, and you have people like Swalwell that are at 1% and others that are at 1%, de Blasio. And now, I mean, you may have Biden on the stage with 3 people that are polling at 1%, Bernie Sanders on another stage with Elizabeth Warren. All right, how's that a debate for president?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what I think is the funniest of all of this right now is, not only does that just not make any sense, but Trump is already basically singling out Biden. It's like Biden and Trump are already both in basically general mode because they're already taking shots at each other tit for tat, which is entertaining. I'll give it that much. But yeah, I actually hadn't looked that much into how they were planning on doing the debates, so that really doesn't make any sense, and I'm not sure people are going to like that format very much. But who knows?
I want to go back.
Voters want to see.
I want to go back on something. This is what I witnessed in California last year, in that everybody's thinking it's going to be this huge bloodbath. I didn't see that in California. I was expecting it because you had, the neoliberals against the hardcore progressives, especially in Northern California. And that bloodbath where they were taking each other out didn't really happen. I mean, nobody came out of that with a negative image. They all came out looking good, just not the winner. Like when we did our fiasco back in 2016, where you had Ted Cruz as the Zodiac Killer and Little Marco, and obviously you need to have a Trump to give out all these little names to everybody, but that it didn't materialize. Everybody thinks it's going to be this huge bloodbath at the DNC this year, and I don't think I don't see it going that way. I don't think that they know that their brand is hurting enough that they don't want to damage it with some bloodletting. You know, they may put some leeches on, but they're not going to open a vein.
And it may be how they feel, and it may be where they're at right now. But I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this before, like when people say Trump's a narcissist. Anyone who gets out of bed, and I talked to a former member of the U.S. Congress today who was a fourth-way member of Congress, and we were talking about it, and I said, anyone who gets out of bed in the morning and looks in the mirror, and Rick's always says before, you get out of bed in the morning and you look in the mirror and you see, I am the best person to lead the free world. I am by far the best person to lead the free world. Is a narcissist. I mean, come on. If you really feel that way, and so they may feel that way right now, but we're not talking about Congress. We're talking about the presidency of the United States. And any of those top-tier candidates that sees a pathway to be that person, it will be brutal. It will be bloody. Nobody lets the nomination for the presidency slip them by. Go back to Reagan and Ford. Go back to the 68 convention for Democrats. Even the John McCain, George W. Bush primary of 2000. I mean, look at the Hillary Clinton-Obama campaigns. She went after Obama.
That's where the birtherism came from. Everybody wants to put that on the right, but she was the one who put that blood in the water.
No, it's the same thing. If you look at Willie Horton, that didn't come from Lee Atwater. He exploited it, used it effectively. Al Gore was the first person to bring up Willie Horton in 1988 in the primary against Michael Dukakis. Al Gore was the one who brought that in and ran the first ad on it. It gets pinned on Lee Atwater because it worked in the general election, but actually came from Al Gore. It's the same thing with the burger thing. That was brutal and bloody, and that's why I think you'll see a difference in this and the fact that, one, we're talking about the presidency, and two, in California, the way the primary system works there, you can have two Democrats on the general election.
I know.
That's the difference. You're not going to get two Democrats on the presidential ballot. There will only be one. And when it's only one, and you're talking about the most powerful office in the world, greed, narcissism, and everything else will come into play. You're already seeing it. I mean, these stories aren't coming out of nowhere. These campaigns have research people. They are leaking to their favorite members of the press that want access to them because of their relationships to get negative stories out of their opponents. They're just not getting ads yet, but the time will come. No one just lets you get the nomination to be president.
Now, from our chat real quick, Ron asks, how concerned are you with states passing laws to effectively negate the Electoral College?
Not. One, if you look at the National Voter Compact, which is what they're talking about, if enough states pass it, their campaign strategies are going to change. And I'll give you an example. Look at some states like Iowa, for example. Iowa is a swing state, relatively small state. Look at the number of possible registered voters to voter registration and voter turnout. It's huge compared to a state like Oklahoma. Why? We're not a swing state. If Trump loses Oklahoma, you've probably lost every state in the end. That's it. But the thing is, if you go to a national popular vote, you will see campaigns turning out people in states that are not trying to win, but trying to win the national popular vote. Here's what concerns me is because what they're doing is going around the Constitution by entering into this multi-state compact, and it sounds like a good idea. But what if they enter this compact, and let's say they get a majority of electoral college votes to be in the compact, and Trump wins the national popular vote, but would have lost the electoral college, like Oregon just passed the national popular vote compact. What prevents them from going into a special session between the election and the electoral college votes cast and leaving the compact?
Yeah, that's. I mean, what you're seeing is traditionally blue states are doing this because they're having their little temper tantrum, and I was glad to see Nevada say no, we're not going to do that. But yeah, that's always been the nightmare scenario for him: is what if Trump gets the popular vote? What are you going to do then? You know,
and
so
it's not just always going to be about Trump. I mean,
right.
They have to realize they can lose the national popular vote, and that's what I was saying is, okay, well, they have a Democrat House, Senate, and governor, and a Republican wins the national popular vote. Well, between the election and when the electoral college votes are cast, you go into special session, leave the compact, and then your electoral votes go back to the whoever you want them to. I just don't think it sustains itself. And like I said, campaign strategies, and I've ran a lot of them, will change. It won't be focusing on these 16 states that are really important where they're spending all their resources. They will start turning out, both parties, voters, like the Democrats in Oklahoma will actually try to get more votes out of Oklahoma for the national popular vote. So you're changing strategy, you change how they operate. So when you talk about the electoral college and the national popular vote, the campaigns will change strategies based on it's not about the electoral college, it's about the national popular vote. And that will go into door knocking, ID, turnout, all sorts of those things. It just changes everything.
Well, and ultimately that would turn off some traditional voters too. It's like, hey, we've always expected we'll use the Dems as an example because this is a Dem initiative. We've always expected, the Dem candidate to come to California. Well, now California doesn't matter anymore. You're not part of this compact. We've got your electoral votes, so we don't need to go there. It's kind of like Trump did in 2016. He came to California, but he didn't really come to California. He just kind of stopped in.
California is no different than Oklahoma in this scenario. The presidential candidates go there to do fundraisers, get money, and go back to sweepstakes and spend it all there. I mean, that's what happens. They're not spending their money in California. They're coming to California to raise money to spend it somewhere else. And the presidential candidates, after the primary, when you're in a general election, they'll come to Oklahoma to do a fundraiser, raise as much money as they can, and go spend it in sweepstakes. They don't spend money here. They don't do voter turnout here because you already know who's going to win.
Yeah, that's what I've always said.
Popular vote, it changes everything.
That's what I've always said about California, too, is the GOP has pretty much forsaken California and just uses it to scare the rest of the country into donations.
Probably so. But, I mean, I have to tell you that the Democrats have made some pretty big steps this year. And this goes back, and I know, Rick, you're familiar with me talking about this, but it goes back into missteps they're making. 18% of Americans, 18% of Americans support third trimester abortions. That means 83% oppose. When you are going that far left, you're giving issues. I mean, when Bill Maher talks to, was it CNN that he doesn't trust the media in this election, and he said, we need to have conversations about guns and understanding about guns, because we could lose the electoral college over this issue. And you grow up in Oklahoma. When I was a senior in high school, I came out of school, people had guns in their gun rack in the school parking lot because they were going hunting during hunting season when they got out of school. There are different cultures. If you're from an inner city somewhere, you've never seen that. You have a different view than people that have guns all around them. I've always said in Oklahoma, if you start walking down a street firing a gun at houses, every house will be firing back at you because everybody has a gun.
Right. And that's pretty much
and that's even the same in my small corner of California.
But our homicides are nothing like Chicago, where they're illegal. Nothing. Not like Baltimore. I mean, literally, more people died in Chicago than overseas that are serving in the military in 1 year. It's just a different cultural thing, but I think Bill Maher was right when he pointed out they are, and he didn't say this, going so far to the left, and they've just forgotten the middle of the country. I mean, you go back to Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson said, if you want to be successful, you better do well in the states between the coasts. They have forgotten that. When Jon Stewart is your spokesperson and Alyssa Milano can influence policy, you got a problem.
Well, it's the old comedian thing is, that won't play in the Catskills.
Exactly.
And that's, yeah.
And so when you call us a basket of deplorables, we're like, great, okay. Well, you just solidified who we're voting for.
Pretty much.
You just insulted. Why would you insult the electorate? I've always said politics, and especially doing elections, the math is simple. You need 50 plus 1. Now, for the presidency, you don't need 50 plus 1 because you may have a libertarian and a green and an independent. I mean, you obviously can win without 50% of the vote and still win the Electoral College or become the president. But the basic point is politics is about addition, not subtracting. Anytime you're subtracting, you're losing. When you're adding, you're winning. It's kind of an old adage. If you're not on offense, you're on defense. And if you're on defense, you're losing. And campaigns, it's certainly that way, which goes back to Rick's point earlier about things he's saying. Trump, you can love him or hate him, but you can't say the guy isn't a marketing guy. I mean, look what he's done with his brand, the money he's made, and the way that he labels people, and it sticks and it rides, and he does it over and over, and people are like, he's crazy, he keeps saying that, but he won. And if you look at the coverage nationally from the media that Obama got, or George W. Bush, and you see that 97% of stories about Trump are negative, Trump supporters have turned it off. They're done. Whether they're Republicans, independents, or Democrats, they're done. And don't tell me there aren't Democrats that are for Trump. The 2nd District of Oklahoma is a majority Democrat congressional district that has a Republican congressman, and probably Trump will win the biggest because they're rural conservative Democrats. They used to be called Blue Dogs and don't exist anymore.
No, I mean that is true. There are people that I know that voted for Trump that didn't even tell anybody they voted for Trump until well after the election. One of them is somebody else that I produce a podcast for, and he
you
basically
heard me say it before. I didn't put a Trump sign on my yard. I didn't put a Trump sticker on my car when he was facing Hillary Clinton in the general election. Who wants to come out to a dent in their car? It's keyed.
Yeah,
or eggs on the house.
Yeah, it's
and
just...
that's what pollsters are missing, and it's what they missed in 2016. And you go back to the Bradley effect in California, or you're familiar with the Bradley effect, right? Ran for governor twice, was an African-American. He was winning in the polls by a landslide both times. He lost both elections. People didn't want to admit they weren't for him.
Right.
You have the opposite with the Trump effect. Who wants to get on the call with a pollster when 96% of national stories are negative and even say they're for Donald Trump right now?
Hey, well, then that's even, Nate Silver alluded to that a little bit too when he was talking about why the Quinnipiac. God damn, I can never say that. The poll that came out today with Biden. Quinnipiac, thank you. I don't know why I always screw that up. You say you're so early in the game. Plus, you have the the silent effect of people are, like you just said, people are not going to say they're for Trump on the phone to some random pollster. Just in the environment we're in right now, it's just not going to happen. With somebody who has your phone number and by all intents and purposes your address, I mean, CNN has made it. Anyway.
Think about how the world has changed. My wife and I don't have a home phone. We both have cell phones. We both have our own careers. We're both professionals. When you call me, if you're not on my caller ID, I do not answer my calls. If you're not in my contacts, I wait for a voicemail. You don't leave one, I'm not calling back.
Exactly.
You're never going to be able to poll me and my wife, who both work in politics at the highest level. And we can't even be polled.
Well, and exactly that. I mean, one, the technology's changed, and two, online polls can be gamed. So, give those a grain of salt. That's right. Just they're too. We do that on Twitter all day long. on gaming polls, do you think guns, do you think the Second Amendment should be repealed? And it'll be pro-dem for like 20 minutes, pro-yes, yes, repeal it for like 20 minutes. And then somebody on the right gets a wind of it, and that thing's just nuked into oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, and the thing is, there are good, solid pollsters out there because they will make enough calls to get the balance right and things like that. And I would point to Public Opinion Strategies. Glenn Bolger is one of the founders of the company. I actually use him for my polling, and they're based out of Virginia. I've known Glenn for a number of years. He does my polling. They're not cheap, but they're very good. But if you actually look at the polls in 2016, the two polls most accurate were Investors Business Daily, TIPP, and Ramison. Those two actually were the closest to the actual vote. And I'm talking within 0.1%. And Nate Silver is great at data, but he beats up on Ramison all the time. But even by his own count in 2016, those two were the most accurate pollsters.
Right.
And Quinnipiac and a lot of these people are totally off. It's like if you look at Trump's favorable rating when they put all the polls together, there's a lot of times you will look at that of a day and you'll see that, he's a 44-48 or a 46-44 and a 43-47. But then you have Quinnipiac that comes out that shows him at a 38-51. And then some other polling company that has a D rating shows him at 39-54. Well, you're averaging it out, but you see four polls that all show it within 2 or 3, 4 or 5 points, which are close to a margin of error, but two polls that have him with a fave, unfave 15 points different, and they put them all together, and all of a sudden the numbers don't look that well. Well, that may be your data problem right there. Maybe you throw the outliers out.
Right. That's what we were taught in statistics in college, is throw your outliers out.
Exactly.
Statistical anomaly.
Major. Yeah, I'm a political science major, and we talk about multiple regression. Anytime that you're going to do a statistical analysis, and I did one over an election in 2002 in Oklahoma, using multiple regression. There's 3 different scientific tests. When you enter all the data, it has to pass to be considered scientifically balanced. None of that is going on. And a lot of these polls are just for clicks. I mean, they're just for clicks. Google made more last year advertising just off the search engine of people pulling up stories for print media than the print media made, who's actually paying the reporters to write the content. Google's not paying anybody to write any content. All they're doing is linking stories. And they're making more money than the people that are paying people to write the content.
Right.
It's all about the clicks.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a click-based society now. That's, one of the getting off track a little bit, but that's what they're blasting YouTube about. But, who would have thought that, providing a service where people could watch what they wanted and they don't watch what you want them to watch would, blow up in their faces. But, yeah,
I mean,
that's...
I got to tell you, what's happening to Ben Shapiro is the most obvious example to me. This guy is an Orthodox Jew. And they put up a picture on social media of him at a white supremacist rally where they've imposed his face over somebody else.
Yeah, they're saying that Milton Friedman
really
is radicalizing the right.
Milton Friedman, actually, Rick probably knows this, but Milton Friedman is one of my favorite quotes ever. If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert in 5 years, they'll need more sand.
Right.
That's Milton Friedman's belief.
Right.
And you know what? I don't think he's wrong. And, I mean, we're not talking about far left liberalism at this point in time. We're not actually talking about liberalism. One, Medicare for all. That is a full takeover of the healthcare industry. That is 1/5 of the American economy right there. 1/5 of our economy would be socialized with Medicare for all. But now we're getting into free college for everyone and free housing for everyone.
And good jobs for
Guys,
everyone.
that's socialism. That's not liberalism.
Right.
That is socialism. And the thing is people are talking about these polls that show socialism is so popular with 18 to 35-year-olds, talking about Generation Z and combination of millennials. But there was also a poll that showed that 1/5 of them thought socialism was being active on social media.
So dumb.
So let's
Well,
not
I mean, they
put
don't
too
teach
much
anything in
weight
school.
into that theory, you know?
Gen X has got to whip these people in shape.
I don't think there's any
what
hope
I think
for them.
you're seeing is right now you're kind of in a dry period because the Democrat primary is going on. Congress is basically a lame duck. The House isn't going to pass anything the Senate's going to send to the president. I mean, I kind of laughed today. I was like, well, if AOC wants a raise of $5,000 a year from her $75,000 a year salary, pass 5 bills that may make the president's desk, or do something crazy since you control Congress and actually pass a budget.
Right.
I mean,
she's
you
in
want to
charge.
raise
She's the
for
boss.
what? But you want to raise for what? What do you want to raise for? What have you done to deserve a raise? Well, I'm in the private sector. You guys are a private sector. I'm an independent contractor. If I go to my client and say, look, I want to raise. Well, why do you want to raise? Well, this is what I did. This is how we performed. This is the situation we were in. This is what I did. This is what the ultimate outcome is. They say, oh, yeah, you deserve a raise. I say, oh, no, we don't think you deserve a raise. But it's based on performance. If you can't get 5 bills to the president's desk while you control Congress, why do you deserve a raise?
Right. For showing
you can't
up.
work with anybody. Yeah, I mean, you're not working with anybody. You're not getting things passed and getting them to the president. Why do you deserve a raise for? Just to show up and make sure that nothing happens?
What I like
Well,
is
if you don't give us a raise,
the
we'll
only
take
job in
bribes.
the world where you can make $175,000 a year to not accomplish anything.
Right.
Yeah. What I think is funny is all the people on social media talking about, well, we've got to give them raises because if not, they'll just take bribes and they'll do this and you get what you pay for. I'm like, well, if we get what we pay for, they should be getting nothing because we ain't getting nothing.
Right.
Just like,
So you're telling me the United States Congress is so petty that they are taking bribes, but if you move them from $175,000 to $180,000 a year, they won't?
Well, I mean, I
Did
didn't
you
say
remember the congressman from Louisiana that had $1 million in cash in his freezer? Only $5,000 a year would have actually changed his mind. But
No, probably
I
not.
just think called common sense. It seems to be really slow with people right now these days.
Speaking of common sense, believe it or not, we've already gone almost 3/4 of the way through the show, so we're just going to skip the break because the conversation was going so well I didn't want to interrupt anything. But we're going to switch to some headlines. So first one, Joe Biden was recently, as everybody knows, at a rally and apparently was talking about how scandal-free the Obama administration was or now he's calling it the Obama-Biden administration. And it was completely scandal-free for 8 years, according to Joe. Was he asleep the whole time?
Really?
Or?
Because, do they not remember that the Attorney General, Eric Holder, was held in contempt of Congress?
Apparently not.
Because he was. And do they realize that with Fast and Furious and the guns they gave to try to track, kill Border Patrol agents that they gave to Mexican cartels? We gave $1.5 billion in cash to Iran, and the excuse was we couldn't wire the money because of laws, but then we wired them another batch of money. The red line in Syria that became pink that just disappeared. The 8-year apology tour. And I mean, Rick, I really think this needs some emphasis that people forget about 2016 and one of the factors that Trump won. I am proud of this country. Has there been evil things happen here? Yes. Has there been things that are wrong happen here? Yes. But we started this great thing called a democracy. and we are a republic, but people actually had a right to choose their leaders. They weren't governed by a monarch. And for 8 years, we felt like we had someone that every time they went outside the United States apologized for everything we did. You're in Europe. Do you not remember the Marshall Plan? It was our money that we paid in taxes to rebuild Europe.
Exactly.
It is our money we spend on national defense on these bases across the world to protect you. And I don't want a president to apologize for America, because the only reason they have their forms of democracy they have is because our great experiment succeeded. We don't have to apologize to them. I'm proud to be an American. And as soon as you stop telling me I shouldn't be proud to be an American, then obviously I'm going to be in the minority party.
Well said, man. Well said.
Right.
And that is something that I think Trump actually tapped into. And I think that was one of the things that swung the pendulum back his way. And honestly, I think it's going to be what carries him through 2020, regardless of what the polls are saying right now. Because I know
Rick,
go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, me being a political professional that's ran as many campaigns and been involved as I have, and been on presidentials, and my wife's been on presidentials. Just even that, just hearing him say, I'm not going to apologize when I travel around the world for the United States of America, it got to me. I'm like, yeah, I don't want a president who's going to apologize for us. We have done more for this globe and more countries than any country on the face of the earth. And you talk about getting involved in foreign elections. Guys, we created that game. We have been involved and manipulated more elections than any country on the face of the earth. You look how many Central American countries, Mexico, European countries, Asian countries that pay American political consultants to come in and run campaigns.
You got a point.
We soak it up. It is us.
So that's actually a great segue into the last thing that I really wanted to touch on while we had you on. So there's a headline going around all over the place today that has apparently got folks like Rick Wilson, we've got Bill Kristol, and a bunch of the Never Trumpers along with the Democrats right now screaming and yelling because Donald Trump was quoted as to saying he probably wouldn't report a foreign government giving him dirt on a 2020 campaign candidate to the FBI.
Excuse me, Rick, did you just say they're going along with Democrats? Because I thought they were Democrats.
Yeah. Basically. I mean,
look, they switch team. I don't care what their registration is. I mean, there's a reason their business has gone down the toilet. There's reasons that where they are. Donald Trump has the highest approval rating in his own party of any president since we started polling at this point in his presidency. He is the leader of the Republican Party. See how those primaries went for people who opposed Trump versus those who supported.
Got a point.
If you were campaigning against the president, you lost. Because this is his party, a 90% favorable rating with Republicans. This is his party now. It may have been a hostile takeover, but it's taken over. He's the guy. And I'm just telling you, right now, to me, this is the most elementary, childish, non-common sense conversation we could have, which is why I love to take it on, because it's so easy. Okay, so a national political party and a presidential campaign pay a law firm to pay an opposition research company, to pay a foreign agent. For those of you listening that don't know, the United Kingdom is not part of the United States. We actually had a tea party and a war not to be part of the United Kingdom. That's how we became the United States, if people need a history or civics lesson. It's a foreign country. They paid a foreign agent named Christopher Steele, who, by the way, when being interviewed by the Department of Justice, will not come to the continental United States, but by video from the United Kingdom for a reason. He wants to get out of the United States, and if he comes over here for the interview, he may not. Who paid Russians money for dirt on Donald Trump that now we know is not even true. And it was all given to the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, who gave it to the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. They prosecuted George Papadopoulos, and he got a whopping 14 days in prison for lying to the FBI and only served 4. He never even got a transferring. It's like, hey, guys, it's Friday. I'll see you Tuesday. That's his prison sentence. That's a horrible crime. Carter Page, 4 FISA warrants based on that dossier. Never has been charged with a crime. For 1 year, human surveillance, electronic surveillance, and it goes 2 levels deep. Anyone he talked to or emailed, or they talked to or emailed, 2 people deep, never charged with a crime. So you had the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton pay an law firm to pay an opposition research firm to pay a foreign agent from the United Kingdom to give Russians money, who also, by the way, Christopher Steele is also paid by the FBI. Where does their money come from? Taxpayer dollars. My money and yours. For a fabricated document that can't be proven. Actually, the special prosecutor, Mueller, said not one American conspired with Russian agents. So Hillary Clinton and the DNC could pay an opposition research firm to pay a British agent to give money to Russians, and our taxpayer dollars was also given to the foreign agent from the UK for a bogus report that has been disproven on so many levels. And you're wanting to talk to me about whether Donald Trump, if called on someone that is a citizen of another country, say has dirt on your opponent, that he'll listen.
I see a problem with it. I don't know any campaign that wouldn't.
Who wouldn't?
And I don't either.
A lot of campaigns. There's a lot of campaigns. You walk into my office to bring me a file showing me that my opponent, or the campaign run's opponent, has documented all these bad things. Hell, I'm going to use it. Who wouldn't? I mean, that's just smart. There's no law against listening to somebody or somebody handing you a file. But my point is, why are we talking about the fact that the Democrat National Committee and a presidential campaign paid a foreign agent who paid Russian to give information that was ultimately not true? How is that not a conspiracy or collusion with the Russians?
Yeah, there was collusion with the Russians. They've just been investigating the wrong people.
Right. The Trump people never paid any Russians. The Hillary Clinton campaign did. But that's okay.
Oh, my God, why are you so obsessed with Hillary? I'm sorry. That's a standard. That's a social media response. It's true.
No, I understand. To me, it's just so... How does this not just common sense? The thing is, I think it is. I think of most independents, I think all Republicans have totally checked out on this. And the thing is, we talk about the media. The point I brought up earlier about the fact that Google made more than the print media off of them just being the search platform where people are getting print media stories. Is my point about the clicks, and it's what gets the clicks. It's not what's relevant and what matters, because no one is going to talk about that. But people's common sense have just checked out. I mean, they're not paying attention. When you say Russia, I tell you what, whoever's listening, wherever they are in the country, go to a breakfast cafeteria tomorrow, say hi to a stranger, ask if you can buy them breakfast, and say, do you want to talk about the Russian collusion story with Trump? And they'll probably pay for your breakfast to leave. They're done. They don't want to hear about it anymore, man.
No, you're right. Actually, just for fun, because I can't mention where I work because I've promised them that I wouldn't now that they know that I do this. But there is a common complex where we can go walk on lunch breaks and stuff, and I will occasionally just be like, hey, man, I do a podcast, and I do this and I do that. If it's all right with you, I've got a couple of questions. Anytime I bring up Russia, they're just like, dude, we have other things to do. They will talk to me about pretty much anything else I ask them, but as soon as I start trying to talk to them about Russia, they're like, we're done with it. Now, granted, we are, 77 counties red where Trump's concerned, so I'm not necessarily surprised, but the number of people that are just completely over it and just don't even want to talk about it at all, when the left started losing the talk show circuit, that's when I knew they were in trouble. When you had people that are on the late night talk shows being like, look, either finally impeach the guy or sit down and shut up, then yeah.
That's it, but that's the dilemma the media is in that hates Trump right now, though, right? Their ratings are falling huge since the Mueller report came out. For 2 years, they told the American people, plus 2 years, they told the American people there was going to be Russia collusion. There wasn't. And collusion is an antitrust term. Let's say conspiracy, because they're not even using the legal term. The only time collusion is ever used in the federal code is when it comes to antitrust, which is actually going on to Google and Facebook and YouTube right now. But there is no collusion when it comes to elections. Collusion is only mentioned in the federal code when it comes to antitrust cases. Most people don't ever even talk about that, but that's the truth. So let's just call it conspiracy. If you're having this conversation in New York City or L.A. County, we know where you're going. I mean, Trump lost the national popular vote by 3 million votes. Basically, the area around New York City and New York, the metroplex around New York City, was 1.6 million of it. The rest was in Los Angeles County.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's only 1/3. That's only 1/3 of Los Angeles County. That is exactly. San Diego County in its entirety, and that's 3 times. The only reason why I have these numbers in my head is because of the high-speed rail, and but anyway, for population anyway. But yeah, so yeah,
that's my point. You go outside of. Now you go out and ask them that question, then everybody's going to be all over it. But go to Iowa, go to Florida, go to Michigan, go to Minnesota. Go to Indiana. Go to Pennsylvania, especially Pennsylvania, with the jobs that have been out there. Go there and ask them what they think about this. They think it's all a bunch of BS because for 2 years they were told he was dead to rights. How many times did CNN, Washington Post, all these people say, it's coming, it's coming. Clapper is on national TV as the former head of an intelligence agency acting like he knows something we don't know, saying there will be impeachment. There was a conspiracy with Russians. We know it. And then the report comes out and he's like, I don't know what went wrong. Brother, you're what went wrong. You got involved in a presidential election. And the fact is, do the American people want the voters to decide who's going to lead this country or represent Congress? Or do we want the FBI, the CIA, and NSA? I can't name all the 17 intelligence agencies. I'm trying to figure out why we have 17 intelligence agencies. Seems like a lot of duplication, but 17 intelligence agencies. But why were you so wrong? It sounds like you guys are doing a really shitty job. If you thought that this was coming to a head and it's not there, it sounds like you're really bad at what you did.
Well,
and when you accuse the president of being a traitor, a traitor, that calls for death. If I was president, I'd be pretty pissed off too. You called me a traitor for 2 years or something I never did.
What gets me on that is the short memories of the left, in that they put all their eggs in the basket of the Steele dossier. And these are the same people who, to this day, still bitch and moan about going to war in Iraq. That was also based off of a British dossier. So, right. It's. Have you figured out that maybe MI6 is not the organization you should be listening to? And they fall for it every single time.
Well, if you're Christopher Doolin, you're so proud of your work that put your cojones on a plane and come to the United States to do your interview with the DOJ. No, you wouldn't get my video from the UK because you don't want to be on this soil. Because you want to leave this soil, and if you sit down with the DOJ, you may not.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, believe it or not, we're just about out of time. Chad, thank you for hanging out with us. It was actually an extended episode because we didn't take any breaks at all. So thank you very much for hanging for the whole hour.
Rick, always a pleasure. And Nordy, I enjoyed it, man. Thank you very much.
Chad, it was great talking with you, man. It was great meeting you.
You guys have a great evening.
Take care, man. All right, we're going to get out of here. Want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us. We're into what will be hour 4 of Chat Lives Matter, but that does mean that the Robinson and Wright Show for this Wednesday is officially over.
What? Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
From the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the